Hi, music students. It's Mr. Roderick here in the music bunker high atop Mount Clemens. And today our target, we are going to write a song using real music notation. First, let's learn to draw the notes and the rests that go with them that we use in real music notation. Whole note and whole rest, half note and half rest, quarter note and quarter rest, eighth notes and eighth rests, and 16th notes and 16th rests. That's a lot of notes and rests. But we can do it, and here we go. That's a whole note, and when we see a whole note, we clap. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a half note, and when we see a half note, we usually go 1, 2. It lasts for 2 counts. This is a quarter note, and when we see quarter note, we go 1. Usually. These two notes are called eighth notes. And when we see them together like this, we clap one end. In 4/4 time signature, we can also clap 2 end, or 3 end, or 4 end. We can draw them separately, and if we do, they have little flags like this. But for our purposes, we usually draw them together because it's more fun that way, with the bar like this. But now for the fun note, 16th notes. These 4 notes are called 16th notes, and they're fun. When we see 16th notes, we clap 1 ienda. Or if we're in 4/4 time signature, we could also clap 2 ienda, 3 ienda, or 4 ienda, depending where they are in the measure, which we will also learn about later. We'll talk about how to make all the notes that we just drew fit in 4/4 time signature and how to make rhythms very soon. But first, let's talk about the rests that go with the notes we just drew. I'll erase these 16th notes. I will draw the following rests: whole rest, half rest, quarter rest, eighth rests, although we don't really use those very much, and 16th rests, which you probably won't use until 6th grade, but it's good to know. So here we go. Yes, it looks like an upside down hat or a hole in the ground, which is a good way to remember whole rest, although they're not spelled the same way. A whole rest gets 4 counts, just like a whole note, except it's silent, and the best way to clap it is like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like a hat, but it's a half rest. I used to have an old piano teacher who's probably about the same age I am now, but when I was a little kid, boy, she was old. And here's how she told me to tell the difference between a whole rest and a half rest. If a man walks into a room and takes off his hat, he is a whole gentleman. But if he leaves his hat on his head, he is only half a gentleman. Everybody wears hats all the time now, so it doesn't really apply to our culture anymore. And now, quarter rest. This is the fun one. Yes, if you draw a slanty Z and then add a C underneath, you will make a respectable quarter rest. And a quarter rest only gets one beat, and the best way to do it is to whisper it and go like this. 1. Or in 4/4 time signature, you can make them any of the beats. 2 or 3 or 4. We'll talk about 4/4 time signature coming right up. Stay tuned. Yes, it looks like a 7, but it's an 8th rest. And the 8th rest gets half a beat of silence. And now, 16th rests. With 16th rests, you notice that we add another little flag, just like we added a little bar, another little bar for 16th notes. But we won't reuse 16th rests very much until you get older, anyway. Wait a minute. What are all these other things up here? We know whole note and half note and quarter note and 8th notes and 16th notes. We know whole rest and half rest and quarter rest, 8th rest and 16th rests. But we don't know this one. This is a 16th note all by itself. Well, we can kind of figure that out. We talked about this one. It's an 8th note all by itself where it has its own little flag. But what about this quarter note with a dot? A dotted quarter note. We may talk about that. We'll definitely talk about dotted half note, a half note with a dot. And what are all these things over here? These numbers on top of each other. Well, these are time signatures, and those are the things I wanted to talk about with you very soon. And then here is a treble clef and the famous bass clef. And we'll talk about all those things as we go along. Well, students, you can see I've taken away all the musical notation that we are going to learn in the next couple of videos. But you can see the notes and rests that we learned in this video. You know how to draw. You know how to clap and say them. Except maybe the 16th rest and the 8th rest. Here's a challenge. Why don't you make yourself a rhythm? Take all these notes and rests and string them together in a big long line. Any notes you want, any rests you want, and see if you can clap or play them on an instrument that you make up yourself. Do it over and over again, just to drive your family crazy. And take a picture of your rhythm and send it to me. I'd love to see your artistry in writing musical notation. I'll see you in the next video.